Welcome back to week 7 of Valencia Marathon training. So with just 3 weeks to go now until the big day, see how I get on in a week where I have a 10-mile race on Sunday as I target a sub-3 marathon. As always, we'll start with my training for the week. So on Monday, what I typically like to do is get out for some easy miles, particularly after I've been doing these 20-mile long run sessions on the Sunday. So my sort of theory is that the more I can just keep moving my legs at a slow pace, whether that's walking, running, just like to get out there and try and shake a bit of the fatigue off and the soreness from a big session on Sunday. So I find that if I had a day off on Monday, I'd just stiffen up, I'd struggle to get out on Tuesday, Wednesday, and impact on the rest of my week. So Monday was a 4-mile run in the morning, so getting a little bit of extra volume in there. And the added benefit of this is I'm splitting my run up into 2 runs, so it's not quite as taxing all in one go. And then I got out for 8 miles in the evening, so 12 miles on Monday. On Tuesday would typically be my session day, but I've been finding it pretty tough to run this session after just doing a session and a hard one on a Sunday. So this Tuesday, to be honest, as it worked out, I ran over with work anyway and missed my slot for this session, but I decided to push this back until Wednesday and do it on the treadmill. We'd had some filthy weather, didn't really want to be going outside and doing that session there. So before, I've only really done progression runs and sort of longer steady runs on the treadmill. I'm pretty new to treadmill running, having only got one fairly recently, a month or 2 ago, and not really use them in gyms. I'm not trying to avoid gyms if I can, so it was a bit of a learning curve for me to try and do a 3 minutes interval session. So I went for 8 by 3 minutes in the end, and to be honest, I'd have preferred to do this outside. It was a little bit stop-start. It was okay when I was on the rep, but then manually adjusting the treadmill to go onto a jog recovery, which for this type of session I'll probably prefer a static recovery, but I don't really want to just stand on the side of a treadmill for 60 or 90 seconds while it's still running. It completely messes up all my distance and stats from the run. So I was flicking down the speed. It just got a bit frustrating really, and not really a great session, but still got the work in on Wednesday night, an 8 by 3 minute session. In terms of paces for this session, I can benchmark against my recent sessions I've done, and I've done a 16 by 400 and I've done a 12 by 600, and the paces for these, I was around 6-minute mile for the 400s, and I was around 6:15ish for the 600s. These were both done with a 60 or 90 second static recovery. So when I think of Tuesday's session, by doing 3 minutes, my target is going to be somewhere around that 800 metre mark. So setting off for this, I put 6-minute mile pace into my treadmill, and I found this a little bit unsurprisingly tough going for the first 4 reps or so. Did then drop this down to more of a 6:10 and 6:20 pace by the end to make sure that I could complete the session, which isn't ideal, but it's better than stopping the session short and not getting it done. So you're joining me again on Saturday afternoon, and I'll go straight back into the rest of a recap of the week. So that run on Thursday morning was about 6.5 miles. Again, what I want to do really is be splitting my easy mileage up over 2 in the day. Sometimes I get out and do it all in one go, which is the case like what I'm doing today on Saturday, but I'd like to try and do 10 miles and split that up into 2 runs on the weekdays. I then got out for the second half of this 10 miles after work and did about 4 miles before coaching on Thursday night. So my coaching session I led was a tempo session, and we did about 20 minutes worth of effort in there with a tempo. It was a 3-4-3 pyramid. We did about 2 times through. So if you do fancy coming along, if you're in the local area, it's a free session every Thursday night led by a qualified coach. So popping down and see us at Grizzly Park at 5:30 each Thursday. Moving on to Friday now, and most of you in the UK would have probably been impacted by Storm Claudia, so it was not too bad where we were. Very wet, very windy. We did have a little bit of aftermath of that today in terms of flooding, as we've got quite a few rivers around the Burton-on-Trent, Swadlincote sort of area, and a lot of bodies of water which do seem to burst when we get weather like this, but not quite as extreme as in other parts of the country. So I got planned to do 10 miles there or thereabouts on Friday. So I got out, I moved out my house and into my shed. So I got wet for a couple of seconds and then did the treadmill for half an hour at lunch. And then I got out for about 6.5 miles, just over 10k really, in just under an hour after work. So rounded off just over 10 miles for the day and brought me back up to a decent weekly total going into a weekend, knowing that I've got a bit lower mileage on Sunday with doing the Derby 10 mile instead of a 20-mile long run. And then on to Saturday. So this morning you might notice that no park run on Saturday morning. I'm actually on the same trails as heading to Conker's Park Run, but I did a different activity. So it was a bit of bike pacing for a friend Robbie, who you might have seen pop up on the channel recently over at the Cloud Trail. It was Robbie's last big session really, with about 3 weeks to go now until Valencia, and he really wanted to nail it. He's not got anyone to run with in terms of training partners, and it's been a while since I've been at the pace that I can keep with Robbie on a session. But maybe when he was running the 6:30s, 6:40s that I'm probably capable of at the moment, I could have done, but he was touching low 6-minute miles in his marathon session today. So we headed over the Cloud Trail, very, very wet. It had flooded. There was a section that was about 30 seconds of quite fast running really, that was all quite submerged. We've got the clip on screen, and yeah, not really very good conditions, just very drizzly all day, and one of those that you just sat on the bike for a while and it could just never really get dry or warm because it just constantly rained for the sort of 3.5 hours I was sat on the bike this morning. So it took me a while to sort of get warm again after. I didn't want to catch a cold, so I've come out a little bit later for my run today, so just before the sun setting. In fact, the sun never really got up today, it's just hidden behind cloud all day. So I'm going to do an hour to an hour 15 today. I've just hidden my watch and I've gone on a route that is a mixture of roads and a bit of light trail, so it should be quite nice on my legs.
And here we are away on the start of a Derby 10 mile, and you just notice in the same vest as me on the left in yellow is Rom, who we'll see later, and just in front is Mark, who I initially intended to pace at around 65 minutes today, so 6:30 per mile was the order of the day. I found the pace today to be harder work than I expected, so we set off on the first 3 miles at about 6:20 per mile. I soon dropped back, and the next clip you can see is at about 7 miles, where I've just been passed by Rom, who started a little bit slower behind him and increased his pace, paced it a lot better than I did. So I kept my GoPro well within my shorts, just wanted to really concentrate on putting all my effort into the race really, to try and keep up with Mark and try and keep up with that 6:30 per mile. It's good to have support from our club there in Alveston Park, with about just over a mile to go here. So we head along the river path back towards Pride Park. And so at this point of the race, the sweat and the pinning of my bib had come off, so I was carrying my bib for the last mile or so. And we'll head into the stadium finish now. So this is probably the last 100 metres or so, I'd say. We take a left and then we soon go right round the corner and onto the home straight. So you can see I've got Rom just in front of me. I've managed to hang on to when he'd gone past at 7 miles, but he's a bit too far in front to reel in that sprint finish. So here we are into the finish, really trying to pick it up a little bit more now. Just been overtook by a Tommy Fury impression there, and just under the 106 mark, so I'm still on the 105 that I aim for. So that is Derby 10 finished in a time of 105.46, so approximately 46 seconds out of the time that I wanted. I said that I was going to pace 105, that was the target I was going for, and trying to run at that 6:30 per mile pace. So as I've sort of said, over the course of the race, I wanted to go out at that 6:30 pace. I went out slightly faster than this at low 6:20s for the first 2 or 3 miles, and I could tell that it was a little bit too quick for how I was feeling at the time. So I did then drop this back, and looking back at sort of my graph and my data afterwards, you can see that my heart rate went up to about 170 at one point, which is quite high for where I normally run at. Normally within races it stays within that 160 mark. I don't know how accurate it is, but I do notice that the points where I feel that it's starting to get tough is when my heart rate on my watch has spiked up to, say, somewhere around 170. So that was sort of an issue for me throughout the race, and I found that from 3-4 miles onwards it was a little bit of a struggle to just sort of try and hold the pace and get back to the finish. But if we take step back from that, I've run that at a lot quicker than my marathon pace, which I really want to do is about 6:45 to 6:50 per mile at Valencia. So the test of going on a flat 10 miler and running that at just over 6:30 per mile has paid off, and I've been able to do that. So I know now that if I am, for whatever reason, stupid reason really, at Valencia to run 6:20 low pace, then I'm probably going to struggle and blow up at some point. So I know that to be disciplined and get a good marathon result, I've got to run it somewhere around that 6:40 to 6:50 at Valencia. And who knows, if I get to 15-20 miles and still feel good, like I did in my marathon PB, that last 10k I could start to increase the pace as I know that I'm closer towards the finish line. And the week as a whole, so very good week in training. I knew that I'd be slightly lower on mileage with having the Derby 10 mile at the weekend. So to break it down into the types of runs, I did 2 main sessions really this week. I did an 8 by 3 minutes on the treadmill on Wednesday night. Didn't go great, but I still got the session done. Would have liked slightly quicker paces and to feel a little bit better on that session. And also did today on Sunday the Derby 10 mile, so 10 miles at running faster than marathon pace, a really good test for me 3 weeks out from the marathon. So the rest of the running was solely easy running, so I've split this up into a lot of doubles this week. I've done quite a bit of treadmill running, so that would have been a bit easier on my legs than just running outside all the time on the hard surface of the tarmac. I've tried to get out on trails as much as I can when the weather has allowed that, so not really when it was windy and sludgy on Friday, Saturday sort of time, but when it had cleared up a little bit, tried to run on the trails as much as I could. So a good week really. In total 63 miles, so a little bit down on where I want to be, but still a very solid week. It was more than last week, and I've took 1 rest day this week on the Tuesday. So I'd like similar going into next week. I know I'll have a longer run at the weekend. It's just 3 weeks to go now until the marathon. I feel like I'm in good shape. I've done 4 or 5 really solid long runs on the weekend, and I've hit some good volume within the rest of my training, so feeling pretty confident with 3 weeks to go going into Valencia. So if you did like this video, do hit that like button. Do let me know in the comments what you thought and how your own running's going as well. I do always love to hear that. And then do think about hitting that subscribe button if you want to be notified with these weekly videos in the build up to Valencia. So I'll see you in the next one.